We're learning the Sikha on Elul and Chelek Chavtes on page 161. The Shir today is being learned Lil Nishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yomim ben Rabbi Menashe Kaltman. We begin the talk from Elul regarding the day Elul, the Yom Haledes from the Baal Shem Tov. Elul Shnas Nachas, the day of the birth of the Baal Shem Tov in the year of Nachas, Tov Nun Ches, on the day of Elul. On Yom Haledes from the Alten Rebbe, Elul Shnas Kahos, the birthday of the Alter Rebbe in the year Tov Kofei, hat Kvektushus Marvichami Admur gesagt in Asiche. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said in Asiche regarding this day, V'zel Shoinai, and this is the words of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Bei Chsidim is Faran an alte Chsidische Wort in zwei Aussprachen. By Chsidim, there's an old Chsidic saying that has two ways it was expressed. Aleph, one was that Elul is the Tag was hat gebracht bringt a Leben in Elul. Elul is the day that has brought and brings life into Elul. Beis, another expression was Elul gita chayes in der Avede von ani ledeidi v'deidi li. Elul gives life into the Avede, the work of the month of Elul, which is in the words of ani ledeidi v'deidi li. Von dem, was Kvektushus Marvichami Admur hat Ibbe gesagt beide Neschais, from the fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe repeated both of these versions, is move on as in beide gehalten. That means that they both are true. Und as in jedem Nusach is da an Oiftu legav den Zweiten. In each one of these versions about the significance of the day of Elul, there's something that's being expressed in each saying that the other does not say. Furthermore, the form was Kvektushus Marvichami Admur. Hat sie gesagt mit dem Seder Davke, from the fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe repeated them in this order specifically, or befrat as hat sie misame given mit Aleph and Beis, and especially that he says this is number 1 and Aleph and this is number 2 Beis, is move on, so it's understood as Frie kommt Inyan as Elul, was is in der Tag, was hat gebracht bringt a Leben in Elul. That's the first point, that Elul is the day that has brought and brings life into Elul. Und erste Nacht kommt der Beis, only following this comes the next point, Beis, that Zweite Nusach, Inyan in Elul. What the theme of Elul is, was a Gita Chayes, in der Aveda, von Ani L'Deidi V'Deidi Li. That it gives life, and here it spells out the Aveda of Ani L'Deidi V'Deidi Li. This is the order of these two sayings. Shinuyim zwischen die zwei Nischais hanal zenen. So looking at what are the differences between the first and the second version of the saying. Aleph number 1 in erste Nusach is the Loshen, Elul is the Tag Vos Chulu. In the first version it says that Elul is the day that has brought, focusing on the day. Mashenken in zweiten Nusach steht Elul Stam. In the second version it says Elul under Adgoshe der Tag, without that extra emphasis that it's a day that brings life. Beis, a second point that's a difference. In Erste Nusach, in the first version it says, hat gebracht bringt a Leben. It has brought and brings life. Mashenken in Zweite Nusach, but in the second version it's Gita Chayes. It gives life. Was in dem seinen Faran zwei Shinuyim. And there are 2 points here that are different. Aleph number 1 in Erste Nusach bringt, in Zweite Nusach git. The first version is that it brings, while the second is that it gives. Beis, in erste Nusach is es beloshen avar und beloshen haive, hat gebracht und bringt. In the first version it's both in a past tense and also in present, that it has brought and it brings. Und in zweite Nusach is es nor beloshen haive, git. In the second version it's only in the present that it gives life. Gimel, a third point, the difference between the two versions. In Erste Nusach, a Leben in Elul. In the first version it says that it gives a life into the month of Elul. Aber in Zweite Nusach, a Chayes in der Avede von Ani L'Deidi V'Deidi Li. Here it spells out that it gives life into the work of Ani L'Deidi V'Deidi Li. So what's the difference between these two versions? V'yesh loymar, as the Shinuyim anal, and nit no Shinuyim kalim. Beloshen, these differences is not like it would seem, they're just slight differences, but expressing the same point that Elul is a day that gives life into the Aveda of Elul. No Shinuyim Ikriyim, these are main and strong points that have a difference in teichen, in the content of what this saying is. Aleph. So the first point here is der bitui chai elul is der tag vas chulu. In the first version where it says that this is the day that has brought is madgish the minyan azman. What this is highlighting is we're talking about the actual time. This is a tag. Eine von the Yemei Shana. It's a day, one of the days of the year. Aber a yom miyuchad. But as one of the days of the year, it's special. It stands out. Der tag was het gebracht und bringt a Leben in Elul. It's in time. It's a special time and a day that has brought and brings life into the month of Elul. However, when all you're saying is that Chai Elul, without mentioning the day, is the by nitazay mudgish the inyan azman shabai. So here we're not highlighting to that degree the time, the day itself. Nor beike der inhalt von dem Tag. The main thing we're focusing on is the content of the day, which is the fact that it's Chai Elul. In andere Werte. In other words, the point here, or the difference here, is as follows. In Zman, Zenefaran, Svei Inyanim. In time, there are two aspects. Aleph, Etzem Azman, there's the time itself. And Beis, then there's the Teichen Azman. Then there's the unique content, what's special about this day. L'dugme, so for example, Yom HaShabbos. So the day of Shabbos was in Zman, so as far as time is concerned, so on one hand, is there Aleph, Eine, from the Shivas, Yemei Shavua. It's one of the 7 days of the week. Nor Zayindik, the Yom HaShvi. But because out of the 7 days, it's the 7th day, the Chol, Hashvi, and Chavivin, and the 7th are beloved or cherished, is this Hayom Miyuchad. So therefore, within time, being a day, as one of the days of the week, it stands out as being more beloved. That's, as far as Shabbos is concerned, within the day of the week. But Beis, another point there is, the Yom HaShvi vermochten sich Kedushas Shabbos. The 7th day has a different level of holiness that stems from the Shabbos. Was the Kedusha mitzadatzma is l'mayla migeder hamokim vazman. This holiness of Shabbos in itself stems from a place that's higher than space and higher than time. Now the Kedusha is meir in the zman for Yom HaShvi. This holiness of Shabbos then illuminates and is expressed and is revealed on the 7th day. But the Kedusha of Shabbos is not coming from the fact that this is a special day. No, the Kedusha of Shabbos is its own level of Kedusha above time and space. It is revealed in the time of the 7th day on Shabbos in this world. Und das ist der erste Chiluk zwischen den zwei Nuschais. So this is the first point in the difference between the two versions. Leuten ersten Nusach kommt der Leben von dem Zman, dem Tag von Chai Elul. In the first version, what it's focusing on is that the life that you get from this time, the day of Chai Elul. It says, an Eis getelte Tag was bringt a Leben in Elul. This is a special day that stands out, that brings life into the Aveda of Elul, or into Elul, rather. It says, Leben in Elul, the life in Elul. Maschenkim leiten zweiten Nusach. In the second version, kommt der Chayes von dem Teichen Hayom. Here, it's focusing on the content of the day. Kommt der Chayes von der Teichen Hayom von Chai Elul Atzmai. From Chai Elul itself, not the day which has something special about it that stands out, but the fact that in this day, there's a content which is above really the day itself. The Chai Elul, which is on this day. Beis. Now, the second point here, the Chilek Kanal, this difference pointed out, is noch mehr Beilet in dem dritten Shinyanal Siv Beis zwischen die zwei Nuschais. This is something which is more noticeable when you pay attention to the third point that's different in the two versions. In Ershton Nusach is the Loshin Aleben in Elul. The first version is that it brings life into Elul. And in Zweite Nusach Achayis in the Aveda von Ani L'Daydi V'Daydi Li. It brings life into the work in Elul, which is Ani L'Daydi V'Daydi Li. Which means in Ershton Nusach redt sich wegen der Leben, was wird da reingebracht in dem Zman von Chodesh Elul. In the first version, it's speaking about the day of Chai Elul, one of the days of the month of Elul, but it stands out and it's special within the time that then it affects the whole month and it brings life into the time, into the month of Elul. Masha'enkein in Zweite Nusach, but in the second version, redt sich milchatchile wegen dem Teichen Inyan. Aveda. Here we're focusing on not the time itself, the month itself, but the Aveda, the work that has to be done in this month. The Chayis von Teuchen, von Chai Elul, and then the life of the content of the Chai Elul was Git Chayis and Teuchen von Chodesh Elul. And that theme and the revelation of Chai Elul gives life into the content of the month, which is the Aveda of the month. And the Aveda von Anila Deidi v'Deidi Li. Was is Rosh Tevis Elul, which is the Rosh Tevis of the word Elul, the name of the month. Aber the word Elul atzmai wird nicht der month. But the name of the month itself, referring to the actual time, the month, that's not mentioned there in the second version. Now, Gimel, euch der zweite Shinui Anal, the second point where we see the difference between the two versions, whether it's brengt, that it brings life, or the git, or it gives, is achiluk ikri. This is also a fundamental difference, or a main thing to focus on in the difference. Brengt a Leben, when you say the expression that it brings life, weist, as the Leben gufe gefindt sich b'makom acher. What that indicates is that the source of this life is in another place. It's just bringing it. And the Talk Chai Elul is their memutze, was brengt a Leben, mimakom acher in Elul. It's bringing this life from another level, another place, into Elul. Mashenken gita chayis meant, but the expression of that it gives life means as Chai Elul git chayis midilei. That Chai Elul itself is a source of life that it gives into the month of Elul. This is the point of the difference between these two sayings. And here the Rabbi will explain in detail what these two sayings are focusing on. So we can explain this as follows. Regarding the month of Elul, we find two different points. The Aveda for Elul is b'derech hasarusa de l'sata. On one hand, what's the Aveda, the work in Elul? That's the arousal from below, that a person has to do tshuva, starting with himself, starting from the person. Elul is Rosh Tevis kanal, ani l'doidi v'doidi li. What does it mean in the lashon of this pasuk? Frier kommt ani l'doidi Aveda Adam. First, the ani, the person turns to his beloved Eibishter. Und danach, v'doidi li, the sarusa de leila. And then as a result, he generates a revelation from above. The says the sarusa de leila, v'doidi li, is a tetzah from Aveda Adam. The revelation from above is only an outcome of what the person has worked towards and has reached. Nitvi Chodesh Nisan, unlike the month of Nisan, was in Yana is sarusa de leila. In Nisan, the main Aveda, or the main point of the month, is the revelation, arousal from above. B'lashon HaPasuk, where the Pasuk says the exact opposite, Doidi li, my beloved, is revealed to me, and Vani loy, and I respond to that revelation. Frier Doidi li, our beloved Hashem is to us, to me. Und danach, durech der Sarusa de Leila, Vani loy. That Sarusa de Leila causes an automatic response to return that love, or to return that connection to Hashem. Nachmer, furthermore, the Alter Rebbe sagt in Likutei Torah. The Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah says, as the Avedei li von Elul, even the revelation that from above, that comes as a result of the Aveda from below, when does that revelation happen? The Amshachas Elokus Yizbarach, Elokusa Yizbarach, Lamato, B'chinas Galos, the revelation of godliness that is revealed is nit in Chodesh Elul. It's not in the month of Elul itself, on a level of revelation. Nor the Noch b'Rosh Hashanah chulu, only on Rosh Hashanah. Valerian for Chodesh Elul is the Esarusa de l'Sata. The entire month, the theme and the concept of the month is the Aveda of the Yid here in this world from below. But on the other hand, Zakt Alter Rebbe dort Gufe, the Alter Rebbe there in this Maimer itself says, as Elul is as man von Eis Rotzen. Elul is an auspicious time where the Rotzen of Hashem is revealed in the world. Zman is Galus Yud Gimel Midas Arachim, and that means that there's a time of revelation, a revelation of Hashem's 13 attributes of mercy. Was der Gilum Milmaila wird aufgetan nit durch Avedes Adam. And here we're not talking about the revelation that comes as a result of what a person has achieved. Nor b'derech hasarusa de leila. This is an arousal that comes from Hashem's initiative from above. Wie verstandig von der Moshel, was the Alter Rebbe sagt dort of them, this is understood from the Moshel that the Alter Rebbe gives, the parable of the king, as das is via melech was mekabel panav basada, like a king when he's traveling and he's in the field before he comes into the city. So there you can greet the king; he's available to be greeted in the field. And va'az rashayin kol misha reitze. Then it's allowed to anyone that wants lotzeis lahakbul panav to go out and greet the king. And v'hu mekabel es kulam b'seiv panim yafais, and the king greets everybody with a happy face. Umara panim seicha kais lakulam. And he shows a panim sheicha, a smiling face to everyone. So what do we see here in this mashal? That there's a revelation from above. Weil afal pi as Elul is in Yani Yesarusa de Lasata canal. Because although the theme of the month of Elul is the Aveda from below, Muzabe yeder Aveda von Anivra onkommen so asiyu amamayla Sarusa de Leilo of that Aveda. Any Aveda that any created being does to serve Hashem must have the assistance be first from above, the revelation from above, to make it possible. As it says in the Medrash on the pasuk, "Mi ikdimani v'ashalim," who's before me that I owe anything to? Hashem says for Him serving me. So everything we do is only with the power and revelation from Hashem from above. Und das ist der Inyan von der Ha'aretz Yudgimel Midas Harachamim b'Chodesh Elul. And this is why there is a revelation of the Midas Harachamim of Hashem in this month. Das ist die Yesarusa de Le'ela of der Aveda von Elul Ani L'Daidi V'Daidi Li. This is the revelation from above to empower a Yid to then utilize every day of the month to serve Hashem in the Aveda from below, in Ani L'Daidi. So these are the two opposite themes that we see in this month. Now, Afal Pi as Elul hatten sich beide inyanim. Although Elul has these two opposite points, Ha'aretz Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, on one hand, a revelation of Hashem's attributes of mercy, Nomaila from above, on Esarusa de Lasata. On the other hand, the main thing of the month is the Aveda from below, Kanal as explained. Doch zene die Rashi Tevis from Wort Elul, but if you take the word, which is the name of the month of Elul, and what's the Rashi Tevis of the word, Ani L'Daidi V'Daidi Li, Meramez Dafke of Yenini von Esarusa de Lasata. It hints specifically to the Aveda from below, not to the revelation of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim. That revelation is not hinted in the name, in the word Elul. So the explanation for this is the Yesarusa de Le'ela von Elul, Ha'aretz Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, the revelation from above, Hashem's 13 attributes of mercy that are revealed in this month, is verbunden mit dem Zman von Elul. That's connected to the very time itself in the year of Elul. As in Faran, Kam Zman and Bishana, there are different time periods in the year, which are unique, auspicious times. But this is nicht verbunden mit Avedas Adam. This has nothing to do with anything that a person accomplishes. Now the Rebbe hat Melchatchile eingestellt in Teva von Welt. Hashem has it within the nature of the world and time itself, as these manim zene mitzad atzmam an eis ratzon, that this time period in the year is a special, auspicious time. So similar is regarding this time in the year, in the month of Elul. As the Ha'aretz Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim b'Chodesh Elul, the fact that there's a revelation of Hashem's attributes of mercy in this month is mitzadem v'Chodesh Elul is an eis ratzon l'mayla, because this is a time when there is from above a great auspicious time, a revelation of Hashem. Was damalt gate der Melech a reisen sada. This is the time, whereas in the parable, the king is revealed, he's available, he's out in the field. That's as far as the very time itself, the time period we're in the last month of the year, before Rosh Hashanah. This is the time period when you have this revelation. But at the same time, what is the content and the real identity of the month itself, the name of the month, which is put into this time period, and therefore this is the name of the month, is Adarabah. So here it's the opposite. Dafke, the Inyan von Esarusa de Lasata. The content of what this time period is about, what the Aveda in this time period is, it's at Aveda from below. A person that wakes up from below and returns to Hashem. Aveda Sadam, the Aveda of a person serving Hashem. So there's the time period itself, and then there's the content and the identity of what this month is about, the theme of the month, which is different, which is Adarabah. It's the Aveda of a person here below. So this is, the Rebbe comes to now back to the two versions of the sayings that the Friedrich Rebbe brought regarding Chai Elul. This is the difference between these two sayings. We could now understand the difference between these two versions regarding the day of Chai Elul. Just like you have these 2 points, which is the revelation of the Midas Harachmim of Hashem. On the other hand, the Aveda from below in Elul, in this month of Elul, is al derech zeh azay b'negei Chai Elul. So similar, it applies also to the Chai Elul, the Chayis of the month of Elul. As the Chayis, was Chai Elul brengt rein in Elul, the life that the day Chai Elul brings into the month of Elul, is in Beide Pratim Shabai, relates to both of these details of the month. Sai B'Negeya, the Aserusa de La'ele Shabai, the Ha'aris Yud Gimel Midas HaRachmim, both regarding the revelation from above, the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachmim in this month, and Sai in the Aserusa de L'Sata Shabai, the Aveda von Elul, and also regarding the arousal or the Aveda from below, that's in the month of Elul. Now, so therefore, in the first version it says, the Tag von Chai Elul, as far as the day of Chai Elul is concerned, Yom HaYoledes von the Baal Shem Tov and von Alten Rebbe, which is the birthday both of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, is a Yom Zgula und Zman von Eis Rotzen. Like any other time period in the year, which is a special time, Chai Elul is a day that this is a unique day. The time itself is an Eis Rotzen. Und der Fahrrad ist gebracht an neuen Leben in dem Eis Rotzen von Elul. And therefore that brings new life into Elul, which is also a unique time period in the year, and there is Eirus from Elul was Kupmal Maila, in that awakening and arousal that comes from above in the month of Elul, mitzad der Ha'aris Yud Gimel Midas HaRachmim, because of the revelation of Hashem's attributes of mercy. Und danach is voran, was Chai Elul is, was Chai Elul mitzad Toichnoi, then you have the day of Chai Elul. When you look at the content of the day, not as far as the time is concerned, that it's naturally from Hashem's behalf, an auspicious time. But as far as the content of the day, verbunden mit Avedas Adam, alpi Teres Achsidis, connected to the unique Aveda that one serves Hashem with, based on the way it's described in Chassidus, Gitachayis and the Teichen from Chodesh Elul. This breathes new life into the content of the month of Elul in the Aveda from Anila Deidi V'Deidi Li. And this is the main theme of the month, which is the real mahus of the month, the Aveda, which you see in the name. And then in the Rashi Tevis of Anila Deidi V'Deidi Li, as the Aveda from Chodesh Elul is mitgar ha'ander chayis. The Aveda in this month is with a different level of enthusiasm, a different energy, because of the day of Chai Elul, or the content of the day, which is the Aveda according to Teres Achsidis. So based on this, we can understand very clearly what the two versions are and the differences in the expressions. Und der Chiluk ist mudgish in die Shinui al-Shainis, Shinuyei al-Shainis, in die Zwei, Nischayis Hanal und Besidram. So we can see it expressed in the differences in the language in these two versions, and to go through it in order. The erste Nusach, Nusach Aleph, this is the first point, this is the beginning. Red wegen der erste Inyan and Oiftun Elul. This is the first point and the first thing that's unique about Elul, die Ha'aris, Yud Gimel Midas HaRachmim, was kommt auf zum Eire sein, die Esrustet L'Sata. There's a revelation of Hashem's attributes of mercy that's revealed in this month in order to bring a person, to awaken him, to come and serve Hashem. Was geschehen, wie die Ha'aris Yud Gimel Midas HaRachmim, is an Eni von Esrustet L'Eila. So the revelation of Hashem's attributes of mercy is from Hashem's initiative, comes from above. Al derech ze euch de Leben von Chai Elul, was is damit verbunden. So the new level of life that in the day of Chai Elul that's connected to this, kommt b'derech hasarusa d'le'ela mo ma'ila lamata. This is also a revelation in this time period of the year, coming from above, mitzadam tok kanal, that this is a day, it's a unique day, that's a eis rotzen, that is a revelation from above. That's what the first version is focusing on. Und der Fall steht bei der Loschen, der Tag, was hat gebracht und bringt a Leben in Elul. What does this expression mean? So Aleph says mudgish dem Zman. In this saying, it's focusing on the time. Chai Elul is the Tag, a Leben in Elul. And this is a day, this is an auspicious day that has this revelation from above that gives life into the time period, which is the time of Elul, the month of Elul. Beis, and also here in this saying, the language is brengt, that it brings life. Weist kanal seif siv gimel. There's this expression of rings, as pointed out before in siv gimel. What does it mean? As the leben kommt b'mokem acher. It brings life from another level, from a different place, and that is from the Aserusa D'Leila. This is the revelation that comes from Hashem's initiative, from above. The leben kommt nicht von Tag atzmai. The life does not come from the day of Chai Elul, the content of the day here, normal Milo. It's on this auspicious time that there's a Eis Ratzon from above. Chai Elul is not the Tag wel gebrengt dem Leben. Chai Elul is that intermediary that in time, it's the auspicious time that there's a revelation from above in this time. And then Gimel, the third point, Mizmad Geshechte Mavar, here it's also pointing out the past. And it's saying the term Hot Gebracht, that it has brought life. Val the minion von Asarusa de Le'ela is Legabe Avedes Adam and Inyan von Ava. Because when we speak about, we're focusing here on the revelation from above, in contrast or comparing it to the Aveda of a person, that's sort of something in the past, meaning it's something that's before and beyond the person. Was kommt lifnei und als sinnes koyach zu der Aveda. It comes before and actually to give the person the proper power that he needs to serve Hashem. This is all in the first version. Mashenken in zweite Nusach Habeis, but then in the second version, and this is number 2, following this, Retzech wegen der Chayes was Chai Elul geht in der Teuchen von Chodesh Elul. Here we're focusing on the life that Chai Elul gives into the content of what this month is about. In der Aveda von Anila Daidi v'Daidi Li. And that is the work that has to be done in this month from below. And that's in the name of the month. That's in the Rosh Tevis of Anila Daidi v'Daidi Li. Was der Chayes kommt nicht von Zman, der Tog. This is not, we're not talking here about the life that comes in the actual time, because it's an auspicious time from above. No, nor from Teichen Ayayim. What is the content of the day in the Aved of the person? Verbunden mit Gili Teires Achsidis. And the way this day is now connected to Chai Elul in the special content that's added through Teires Achsidis in the month of Elul. And the Far steht der Loshen Git Achayis. Therefore, it uses the expression that Chai Elul itself gives life. Weil der Teichen von Chai Elul geht a Chayis mit delay in der Aveda von Anila Daidi v'Daidi Li, because it's Chai Elul itself that has this special power of the Aveda of Teres Achsidis from the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, that Chai Elul itself gives life into the Aveda specifically of Anila Daidi v'Daidi Li. Al derech zeh legabe dem Adam, and the same also applies to the person in his Aveda, as the Chayes was Chai Elul git in the Aveda from Anila Daidi v'Daidi Li, that the life that Chai Elul gives into the Aveda of Anila Daidi, vet nimshach nit b'derech esarusa de le'ela. We're not talking over here about a revelation that comes from this day of Chai Elul from above, nor b'derech mamatu l'mayla. This is going to come only by the person from below. That Adam darfes a reis bringen and a koyach al apayel durich zayin Aveda. In order to access this life, this added enthusiasm in the Aveda on Chodesh Elul from Chai Elul, so then the person has to work on connecting, learning Chassidus, and bringing out that content of Chai Elul to add to his Aveda in the month of Elul. That's what the second version is focusing on. So we have over here the 2 different inyanim of Elul, the Yesarusa de Le'ela, and then the Aveda from below that these 2 versions are focusing on. The Hirah von and Avedas Hashem is in Beidik Tzavis. The lesson that we take for this in serving Hashem is in 2 opposite extremes. For those that are at the beginning of their Aveda, beim Aleph von Elul. They're all the way at the beginning by the Aleph of the month of Elul. Sagt men as Chai Elul is der Tag was hat gebracht und bringt a Leben in Elul. To them, the first version of the saying is telling you that Chai Elul is the day that has brought and brings life into Elul. And that means as follows: a Yid ken doch teinen, and a Yid could argue and say, "Wie is Shaykh? How is it possible, that he wissendig mamode matzove, knowing exactly what he's up to, soll kenne makabel v'keilet sein Chayes von Chai Elul, that he should be a recipient and absorb the life from the day of Chai Elul? Was sort of Shaykhes hat zu azay yom naila? What relation does he have to such a great day?" That's what one may argue. So sagt man him, so it's the first saying that tells a person, as afapi, as du bist noch betchilas Aveda, that even if it's true that you're only at the beginning of your Aveda, und du hast nicht angeheben afille de Aveda von Elul, and you didn't even begin at all, in the first saying, we're not even focusing yet on any Aveda of the month of Elul, which is Anila Deidi v'Deidi Li, that's not even being mentioned here at all. Obemele is doch lechoyre nit shayach, as du sollst oiftan achayis in Avedas Hashem. So if you didn't begin the Aveda yet, there's nothing to talk about adding another layer, another level of enthusiasm. Get the highest to add more life. Afal Pikein, but yet in the first saying, it's telling this person, Hastu bekoyach durich dem yom zgulef von Chai Elul tzal kaponim brengen aleben en Elul. Still, on this special day of Chai Elul, even this person can bring from above, a revelation from above of more new life into Elul. Because this is a revelation that comes from above, even if the person from below did not yet begin. Nachmer, furthermore, is being emphasized in this saying, Chayel hat dir schon gebracht, a Leben in El. Chayel has already brought, it's using the past tense here, it has already brought life into Elul. Du hast es b'Yerusha ma'avisecha v'aveisavisecha. Regardless of what you yourself are up to, you have this within you as an inheritance from your ancestors, from the Yavis. Und der Vater bringt es dir Chayes euch in dem Heute. And therefore, if it's really there, then it gives you life even in the present. That's the lesson from the first saying. On the other hand, is there's also the lesson for those people that are on a higher level, they're leaders. As this is nit genug for him, das was Chayel bringt der Leben in El. It's not enough that Chayel brings from above life into the month of Elul. No, muss öftan a Chayes, git a Chayes in seiner Avodah in Elul. Rather, he that's already working, but nevertheless, he has to add and bring more increase and add life, more enthusiasm in his Avodah of Elul. Ladugman is an example. The limit at Torah when it comes to learning Torah. Says nit genug der inyan fon ligmar inish. It's not enough for one to study and to learn, which means ligrois shmaita merabe, that he learns the subjects, the sugyas from his teacher. And then he's just repeating and taking what his teacher told him, and he contains the information that he learned. Bedugma zu brengen brengt aleben. This is similar to the expression when you bring life, which means that the life is coming from a different place and it's being brought to you. Was 11 is free and it's seine, es kommt b'mokamacher. So here, as a student, you can learn from a teacher information. It's not your information, it's not your ideas, but you learned it and you have it. No, rather, as Dav Zayin, it has to be, as the Gemara there says, the expression, der v'hoda lizber, that then you take this information you have and you can explain it. You can explain it with your own terms, with your own words. In addition to repeating the Torah that he learned from his teacher, then he toils and works hard with his own intellect to explain the reasons behind this idea. To the point that he could even add a novel idea in Torah. The dogma was Chai Elul Gita Chayes in the Avodah von Anil Edaidi V'Daidi. Like it is in the second saying, that on the day of Chai Elul, it's the content of the day itself, which is the Avodah that it itself gives life into the month of Elul, and that's what's being required, and it's what's being said here in the second saying, that even a person that's on a high level and is serving Hashem in the month of Elul, he should continue and take from Chai Elul a completely different level of Avodah to add life into the Avodah of Anil Edaidi V'Daidi Li. Since the Friediger Rebbe said both of these versions, and said that it should be printed and it should be shared with everyone, is muvan as be'emes and beidun is shaykh to kol echad v'echad mi Yisrael. That in truth, both of these versions is applicable to every single Jew. The reason is, although we just explained that the first version is for the beginner, and the second version is for someone that's much further along the way in serving Hashem. But now, even the one that's only at the beginning of his Avodah, muss wissen, but he also has to know, as sof kenet zukommen dazu, as soll geben und öftan chayes ba'avodas Hashem midilei. He has to see the end, and he has to be sure with himself and confident that he could come to the conclusion of the Avodah where he will have so much energy in his Avodah that he will give life into and add another layer in his Avodah of Elul. On the other hand, in the Darge Azeitun in the Avodah von Anil Edaidi V'Daidi Li, even those that are on a higher level and they're already along the way in serving Hashem in the month of Elul of Anil Edaidi. Und noch mehr ist es zu öftan a chayes in their Avodah. They even have additional power to add life, even more life into their Avodah. Darfen sie wissen, but for them it's also relevant to know what it says in the first saying. As das alt is nit im Ganzen sehr öftal. All of this is not entirely their own accomplishment. Now das hebt sich an von dem Leben, was Chai Elul bringt, malmailo Elul. Because really it all begins with the fact that Chai Elul is a day that brings from above the inspiration from Hashem that inspires a person that it should be possible for him to do his Avodah. Valderech and the Dugma now from Limud Torah, and similar, and to bring back the example that brought before regarding learning Torah, the Gemara that sailed Benegele Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara tells us about Rabbi Akiva as B'shas Moshe Rabbeinu had gehert. Wie Rabbi Akiva learned with seine Talmidim. Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem showed him the future generations, and he saw how Rabbi Akiva is learning with the students. And Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't understand what it is that they were saying. It's Toshash Kaichai. This brought a weakness, so to speak, to Moshe Rabbeinu. And then he continued seeing Rabbi Akiva teaching his student, Amru Loi Talmidov, and his student asked the Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi, how do you know this halacha? And Amalem, and he answers them, halacha l'Moshe miSinai. This is something that goes back to a halacha that Moshe Rabbeinu learned from Sinai. So Moshe Rabbeinu realized that all the Torah that they're learning all comes from what he received from Hashem at Sinai. What do we see here in this story? Das heißt, what this means is, as even regarding those matters, it was Rabbi Akiva's own novel ideas. Was the far is and the proof is because that's why it says that Moshe Rabbeinu did not understand what they're talking about, because it was his own chiddush. But it's nekayram for Moshe Rabbeinu. But nevertheless, the ultimate source of this itself is also goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu, halacha l'Moshe miSinai, that Moshe Rabbeinu gets it from Hashem at Sinai. So the same in the Avodah of Elul, even one that's long further down in his path, in serving Hashem on a high level, in Anilu Doidi V'Doidi Li with an added chayis, and the second saying of the Frierdiker Rebbe has to also remember the first point in the first saying, that it all comes from above, that it's a unique zman, that there's a revelation from above that makes it possible for a person to do his Avodah in this time.